Hey, welcome to Everyday Economics. This is the podcast that helps you understand the economic world going on all around us. Everyday Economics is brought to you by the Center Square Newswire Service. I'm Chris Krug, publisher of the Center Square. Orphe Divangi is my co-host and partner on the show. He's a PhD economist. Today is Monday, April 13th, 2026. And in this episode, we're asking a question that doesn't make it into the press release when a governor announces a $1 billion data center deal. Is it actually a good deal for taxpayers? We put a 10-minute timer on every episode. So let's get into it. Hey, Orphe, the incentive packages for these data center projects, which are dotting the land, at least on a proposal basis, like virtually, it seems like everywhere. Like the fastest growing visible part of the economy right now seems to be data centers. The packages that in these projects, can run into the hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of tax breaks. Louisiana just restructured its entire economic development incentive strategy around landing this kind of investment, aerospace, data centers, big ticket tech, infrastructure projects. And they're not alone. Our reporters at the Center Square are covering these deals in the states, across the country. The research, and I know you know this literature, generally says these deals don't generate net positive returns for taxpayers. But let's talk about that. So why do states continue to do it, and what's the opportunity here?
Yeah, ultimately they're trying to attract they're competing with neighboring states to attract as much investment as possible. And remember, politicians operate on election cycles, right? So it's an election year, and so we got to do more than the other guys, right? And so that's usually what fuels these types of investments. And usually the benefits are well inflated. When you look at the net benefits are well inflated, right? And so that's the problem, right? It doesn't necessarily benefit everyone equally. It picks winners and losers, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not a big fan of policy of these types of incentives. I think ultimately, some of the policy, if we want investments, we do more on the tax side for everyone, leveling the playing field. That's usually what gets the best results.
Yeah, I mean, I said, kind of pulling back and thinking about this, aren't we kind of describing in a different format the stadium deal with a server rack instead of a scoreboard? Cities gave away billions of dollars for sports stadiums for decades, and the research was pretty clear that those ultimately didn't come back to the taxpayer in a meaningful way. Is this potentially different, at the least, in terms of ongoing employment or actual, sort of an economic benefit to either the town that these are in or the region where these sit?
Yeah. I think those are a little bit different in the sense that, we're trying to create a more permanent infrastructure, right, for the world of tomorrow, right? I should say today. I mean, AI is everywhere now.
For sure.
And ultimately, we have to build the roads and the highways for this new world that we're in. And so, potentially, right? But ultimately, I mean, the construction employment is going to be temporary. And really, even there, I wonder how many real construction jobs are being created. I mean, if you look nationwide, compared to a year ago, we've added just 57,000 construction sector jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Way down, and the year before, if you look back at a year ago, March 2025, we had added 109,000 jobs on the 12 months before that, right? So I really don't know. I see it slowing down, and I would argue that a lot of these data centers are going to be, they're capital intensive. They're probably not going to hire a lot of workers in the long run. And so, yes, great for capital owners, not so much for locals looking for employment.
Yeah, let's get into that part of it, right? And see if we can not say, get overly specific, because I think that there's a pretty significant known unknown here, right? But, a data center gets announced, it's $1 billion investment, let's say, and that sounds enormous. what would a community actually expect to get from that? How many jobs do you think we would be talking about, like on a per site basis? And what is the taxpayer cost per job when you factor in the incentive package on the tax breaks that come along with it?
Yeah, it's not great. The math doesn't add up. Like I said, we're not creating a ton of construction jobs. Those construction jobs are temporary. So what happens after the data center is built, right? So I really don't see the math really working out, especially for locals, the local community, right? It was interesting. This really makes me think of all the subsidies to build electric vehicles in the South, in some southern markets. It worked for a little bit, and then ultimately it didn't translate into types of jobs, well-paying, jobs, higher number of jobs for locals as people had expected in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, I don't have all the details of the policy, but the literature and our knowledge based on previous, on our experience doing this in the past, tells us that these are not great. Again, some people might argue, look, you're building the infrastructure of the new world, and there will be new jobs created in other sectors potentially, right? But for now, it's hard to say whether or not locals are really going to benefit from this.
Well, let's turn it around and not to say look at it optimistically, but look at it maybe sort of in a different way. And I don't feel like you're being pessimistic about this. I mean, this is new territory. I would say it's somewhat exciting, and in some cases in the local community, it's a little scary, right? Because I mean, the footprints of some of these properties, and of course there've been conversations around them with regard to to natural resource use and whatnot. But I think we've kind of laid out the potential problems with these kind of deals. But states are going to continue to compete for these projects. I think that's a reality. It doesn't feel as if we can build enough of them. So if a governor called you tomorrow and said, "Hey, Orfe, we got a data center company at the table. What should I ask for?" What would you recommend?
These data centers are going to get built anyway, right? I think a lot of these companies are even fighting for land. They're willing to pay up to get land to build a data center. And so, giving away incentives, I think as a politician doesn't make a lot of sense. If anything, you create a big hole in your budget. The math just doesn't add up. Those data centers were going to get built anyway.
Yeah. So I guess so it goes, right? I guess the question is, would this have happened anyway? And if not, is the deal structures for taxpayers actually come out ahead? Those are the kinds of questions that the local reporters should be asking, and they're the questions that our newsroom asks every day. Dr. Rowe, good stuff as always. Make sure that you read Orfe's Everyday Economics column every Monday in the Center Square, and listen to what we have to say every weekend on the Center Square Radio Hour.